Hey everyone, it's Jeremy with Teletone. We just released a new product called Oracle. This is our first full-featured comprehensive synthesizer. And I wanted to take a look today specifically at the custom shapes from the movement section. So let's jump on in. And I think what I want to do today is to briefly go over some basic information with the custom shapes and how movement works, and then get into some more advanced techniques. So for starters, let's go to our movement section. And for simplicity, let's say we want to add movement to the volume. You just drag and drop onto the volume and it turns on. And now you'll see that you can affect the depth and rate. You can change to some of these basic shapes, or what we want to talk about today are these custom shapes. And from here, there's a lot of things you can do. You can use your mouse to draw in new shapes. And when you're drawing in shapes, it might be useful to remember that whatever you're going to do, the end of it is going to connect back to the first part. And so if you end with something way up here, when it snaps back here, you're going to hear that. And maybe you want that, maybe you don't. If you don't want that, you want something to modulate a little bit and then come back to where it started. Just keep that in mind, that you may want to smooth out the end and the beginning of whatever you draw in there. You can use the smooth tool to round off any edges. You can use the shift button to move your shape around. One thing I should mention about this shift is that a lot of times if I'm applying movement to tune, the way it starts, it comes out the gate like really exaggerated, like more than I would want to use it. And using this can help you to minimize that. You can really shrink this down. If you just want a little bit of a pitch warble, you can also affect that using depth. But this helps you to fine tune it a bit more. Additionally, if you use Control and drag or right click, you can make straight lines. You can change the number of steps here from 2 all the way to 128. And anytime you're playing, you'll see an indicator move across the bottom here. If I slow this way down, you might be able to see it. And that will become more and more relevant as we get into some of the more advanced techniques. We have saved a bunch of custom shapes in here. And I won't go through all of them right now, but there's a pretty big variety in here. Okay, let's get into a more advanced conversation now about these custom shapes. Anytime you're adding movement, you are adding a binary movement. So it's going to go above and below wherever you have whatever knob it is you're applying it to. It's going to go above and below that. So if I'm assigning this to tune, it's going to go back and forth above and below it. And same thing with pan. It's going to go left and right. And then with volume, it's going to go up in volume, then down in volume. But there may be times where you don't actually want it to go below or above whatever you're doing. You want it to be unidirectional. And so you want it to stay at 12 o'clock, and let's say you just want it to increase in volume, but not dip below the point where you have your knob set. That's where a custom shape could be really useful. And in the abstract, this may seem like a small detail, but try to remember this technique because you will use it more than you think you will. So here's an example right here. This is basically a unidirectional movement. It is not crossing this threshold, so it's going to go in one direction. So you can see here with this indicator that it is not going above where the knob is set to. And if I invert this, then it's going to only go above where it's set to. So before, it would kind of disappear into the lower half of the volume and then reappear as it goes up. I think actually maybe the best context for this is to apply it to the cutoff. And again, if we go back to our sine wave, it's going to dip below here and the sound is going to disappear a little bit, which you may or may not want. So again, we can go to our custom shapes and pick any one of these that is unidirectional. And then turn off the invert. So please keep that in mind, that you can pick one of those half shapes or you can do it yourself, again, using your straight line tool. That makes it really easy. Another thing I want to point out while we're talking about unidirectional shapes is that I've saved some in here that say pitch envelope down or up. Now these can be used for anything. They don't have to be for pitch, but it's kind of what I set out to make this for. If you were going to make some kind of 808 type sub, you may want to attach something like this to pitch. And most of the time when I'm using this, I'm attempting to use it basically as a one-shot. And let me show you what I mean. Let's drag and drop this onto tune, and now it's going to drop in pitch. And it's set pretty fast. Let me slow it down. Now, when you hold this key down, it's going to circle back around to the beginning and you're going to hear that repeat. So whenever I'm using that, in most cases, I'm going to turn the sustain off and then I'm going to mess with the decay until it lands, until it ends where I want it to. So you can see that we've died out well before it circles back around. If you invert this, you're going to kind of have like a inverted 808 where it scoops up into the pitch. But like I said, you can use this for a lot of different things. Let me take it off that and let's apply this and see how it sounds when we attach it to cutoff and or resonance. So that's a nice place you could use that pitch envelope custom shape. All right, let's get even a little bit more advanced here. We have this mod wheel button, and when you turn that on, it's going to cause the mod wheel to scrub through whatever's in here. I have this set to 2 steps, but if it were set here, you could use the mod wheel and you'd see it scrub through this movement. But for this example, I actually want to go back to just 2 steps because I think this is pretty interesting. I have my sub going to oscillator B, and then I have none selected because I don't want it layered with another source. So this B is just going to be my sub, but we don't hear anything right now. That is because I've depth all the way up, mod wheel is turned on, and so as I scrub with the mod wheel, because of the shape that I have selected, it's kind of operating as an on-off switch. And you can see that when you watch down here, you'll see it jumps from all the way down to all the way up, which is kind of interesting. Let's turn on A and let's hear that. But I think we can take this even further and make this more interesting. Let's go to movement tab number 2 and turn it on. And I have this attached to the volume of oscillator B where the sub is going, and I have it set to square. And this is tempo synced. I have this set to 16th notes with the depth turned up pretty far. Let me turn off movement 1 for a second. And so here's what we have with movement 2. Let me turn off A. And if I combine these two, then I can turn on and off this oscillating sub. And we can go even further with this. On 3, I have this set to sync up with the volume knob on A. And when we look at it, same thing, 128 steps, so just have it set to the square. And I'm using the mod wheel here. So now, this volume on A is set as a binary. Let me turn off B. So if you're kind of piecing this together in your head, I have an on and off switch basically for the sub. I have a pulse happening on the sub, and then I have an on-off switch for A. And the result is this. So that's kind of a unique way you can think about the movement and the custom shapes tuning your mod wheel into an on and off switch for basically just about anything on here. Okay, and I have another instance set up here. We can take this idea even a little bit further. In this example, I've basically made a custom shape into something that's almost like a step modulator or a step sequencer. And I've attached this shape to the volume on A and B. Let me just show you, it's easier to hear. So it's modulating the volume, kind of jumping up and down. All right, let's go to movement 2, which I have attached to the sub as well as the reverb. And this isn't like the coolest example in the world, but I'm trying to demonstrate a way that I want you to think about using the movement, the custom shapes inside movement. And that is that you have so much flexibility when you kind of open up your mind to like the possibilities here. I'm using the 16 steps to make the sub jump on whenever I want it to, anywhere in the measure. So let's watch. And it does the same with the reverb. The reverb is not generally on, but it jumps on with the sub. Now, that's not something you would typically do. You wouldn't normally put a heavy reverb on a sub, but I'm trying to demonstrate that I want you to be thinking like this, that if you want the drive to jump up for 1/8 note, that is entirely possible here. And when you're in the midst of kind of stacking all these movements on top of each other, sometimes they can get out of sync, and if they do that, just hit this exclamation point, and it kind of resets the internal timer in case they get out of sync. And I've taken this idea one step further by adding another movement tab to the cutoff and the noise. Let's hear what just the cutoff and noise are doing. And let's watch it while it happens. So we turn everything back on. And of course, when you have re-trigger on for all of these, you can take things kind of to the next level by doing things in time and offsetting each other. Let me try to think of an example. So those things are kind of happening at different times now, because every time you hit a note, it's going to start that pattern over. You got to be pretty decent at playing in time, and I'm not always the best at that when I'm doing it on video. So there really are so many things you can do when you get creative with this. And then I think I just want to visit one more idea today, and I use this on a bunch of different presets. I think it would be fun to look at some of these Schoenberg patches. On these, I am really using these custom shapes as a step sequencer for the pitch. And so let's turn off 2 and 3 to start with. And you can see that I have one attached to tune. And this is named after Arnold Schoenberg, who kind of popularized 12-tone music, where you're required to use all 12 tones in the scale and make different patterns out of it. This is not a true 12-tone pattern. You can see that the steps are set to 13. It's not anything literal having to do with 12-tone music. And I have movement number 2 set to the tune on oscillator B, but I believe I have them playing at different speeds and different depths. So when you put them together, we're going to start getting some interesting things. And on this preset, I have things attached to the Modwheel too. I have a major and minor version where it sticks closer to a major scale and minor scale. Here's the minor one. So that is basically all I had for today. I hope that gives you some ideas directionally about how you can think about these custom shapes, because there are some really, really interesting things to explore, and I hope you do. Please share those with us. At Teletone Audio is how you can find us. The website is teletoneaudio.com. Oracle is out now.